Detroit, Michigan, July 25th, 1984. The summer air hung thick with anticipation as 95,000 fans packed Pontiac Silverdome to absolute capacity. The Victory Tour had only just begun, and already the legend of these shows was growing with each passing night. The stage, a technological marvel of the era, stood silent for a moment as the final preparations were made. Light technicians adjusted their positions, sound engineers made last-minute level checks, and security personnel surveyed the swelling crowd with watchful eyes. In the darkness, the collective breath of nearly 100,000 souls created an electric current that seemed to pulse through the stadium. They had come from everywhere. Some had driven for days, others had spent their life savings on tickets. Many had camped outside for a chance to witness what they knew would be more than just a concert. This was to be a moment in history, a memory they would carry with them for the remainder of their lives. The air conditioning systems of the massive dome struggled against the combined heat of those bodies, against the fever of anticipation that no mechanical system could possibly cool. Families held hands. Friends embraced. Strangers exchanged glances of mutual understanding. We are here. We are part of this. We will remember this night forever. The house lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd, so complete that it seemed as though time itself had paused to witness what was about to unfold. Then, a single beam of white light cut through the darkness, and the opening notes began. The crowd erupted in a primal roar that seemed to shake the very foundation of the stadium. Michael Jackson emerged from below the stage, rising slowly on a hydraulic platform, his silhouette immediately recognizable even before the lights fully revealed him. He stood motionless for several beats, absorbing the energy of the crowd, his signature fedora tilted just so, his sequined jacket catching the light in 1,000 tiny explosions of brilliance. His gloved hand raised slowly, and the stadium fell silent once more, 95,000 people under the control of a single gesture. When he moved, it was with that otherworldly grace that had already become his trademark. Part dancer, part magician, part visitor from another realm of artistic expression. The precision of his movements, the sharpness of each gesture contrasted with the fluid elegance of his transitions, created a visual language that transcended the need for words. The crowd responded to every motion, every subtle shift of his weight, every flick of his wrist, as though they were extensions of his own body. The first hour of the show passed in what seemed like minutes, a blur of perfectly choreographed numbers, each more astonishing than the last. The Jackson brothers performed with the practiced precision of men who had spent their lives on stage together, but there was no mistaking who commanded the attention of every eye in the house. Michael moved like a force of nature, his voice soaring over the massive space, reaching the very last row of the highest tier with the same intimacy as those in the front. Between songs, he would sometimes stand at the edge of the stage, gazing out at the ocean of faces, a gentle smile playing at the corners of his mouth, a look of genuine wonder in his eyes, as though he could never quite believe that all of these people had come for him. There was a vulnerability in those moments that contrasted sharply with the absolute control he displayed during his performances, a glimpse of the human being behind the superhuman talent. The connection he established with the audience during those brief interludes was perhaps as powerful as the songs themselves, a silent communion between artist and admirers that needed no words to express its depth. As the main set approached its conclusion, Michael stepped to the center microphone, slightly out of breath, but energized by the wall of love emanating from the crowd. "Detroit," he said, his voice softer than many expected, almost childlike in its sincerity. "Detroit has always been so special to me. This city, this energy." He paused, looking down for a moment, collecting his thoughts, or perhaps his emotions. "This was where it all began for us, right here in Detroit. The very first time we heard our songs on the radio, we were right here." The crowd responded with a roar that seemed to touch him deeply. He smiled that smile, the one that transformed his entire face, that erased for a moment all the complexities of fame and allowed a pure joy to shine through. And tonight, He continued once the noise had subsided somewhat. "Tonight, I want to share something special with you. Something I've been planning for a while." He glanced off stage, a conspiratorial look crossing his features. "Detroit has given us so much love over the years. And there's someone else who knows that love, someone who's been like a mother to me, someone who helped us when we were just kids trying to find our way." A murmur rippled through the crowd, a collective intake of breath as speculation began to spread like wildfire. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael said, his voice dropping to an almost reverent whisper that nonetheless carried to every corner of the vast space, "please welcome to the stage Miss Diana Ross." The explosion of sound that followed was unlike anything the Silverdome had ever contained. It was not merely applause or cheers. It was a physical force, a tidal wave of emotion that crashed over the stage. For a moment, nothing happened, and the anticipation built to an almost unbearable level. Then, from stage left, she appeared. Diana Ross, resplendent in a shimmering gown that caught the light like captured stars, her smile as radiant as it had been when she first took the world by storm with the Supremes 2 decades earlier. The elegance of her walk, the regal tilt of her chin, the warmth of her presence. She was every inch the legend. As she crossed the center stage, Michael's reaction was captured on the massive screens flanking the stage. A look of pure, unfiltered adoration, the face of a man in the presence of his idol. When they embraced, time seemed to stand still. It was not merely two superstars sharing a stage. It was a moment of genuine human connection, a public display of a deeply private bond. Diana held Michael's face in her hands for a moment, looking into his eyes with what could only be described as maternal pride, before they both turned to face the audience, hands clasped together, raised high in triumph and gratitude. What followed was magic of the purest kind. They began with a medley that traced the journey of both their careers, their voices weaving together in a tapestry of shared history. Diana's rich, emotional tones complemented Michael's clear, powerful range in ways that seemed predestined rather than rehearsed. They moved together across the stage with a chemistry that spoke of deep mutual respect and genuine affection. At times, they would simply stand side by side, allowing their voices alone to fill the massive space, creating moments of such pure emotion that many in the audience found themselves weeping openly. In the third row, a woman in her 60s stood with tears streaming down her face, one hand pressed to her heart, the other reaching toward the stage as though trying to physically touch the music itself. Near the center of the floor section, a father lifted his young daughter onto his shoulders so she could better see the historic moment unfolding before them, telling her, remember this forever." Throughout the stadium, strangers turned to one another, exchanging glances of shared wonder. Temporary bonds formed in the presence of something truly extraordinary. The pinnacle came when the backing track softened, and Michael turned to Diana with a look of pure vulnerability. "This next song," he said to the crowd, but his eyes never left her face. "This one is for the woman who showed me what it means to be not just a performer, but an artist, who taught me that with great gifts come great responsibilities." Diana's eyes glistened in the spotlight as she reached for his hand. Together, they began a song that spoke of gratitude and guidance, of finding light in darkness, of the power of unconditional love. As their voices joined in the chorus, the entire stadium fell into a hushed reverence. 95,000 people stood in perfect stillness, bearing witness to a moment of artistic communion so genuine that it transcended entertainment and became something approaching the sacred. The raw emotion in both their voices stripped away the glamour and spectacle, leaving only the pure essence of two souls expressing their truth through music. When Diana's voice soared on the bridge, Michael stepped back slightly, watching her with undisguised admiration, nodding in encouragement as she held a note that seemed to contain within it all the struggle and triumph of her remarkable journey. When he rejoined for the final chorus, their voices blended so perfectly that it became impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. a musical manifestation of their intertwined lives and careers. As the song reached its conclusion, something remarkable happened. Diana reached into a small pocket concealed in the folds of her gown and removed a delicate silver bracelet. She held it up to the light for a moment before taking Michael's wrist and fastening it around it. The camera zoomed in on this intimate gesture, projecting it onto the massive screens for all to witness. The bracelet was simple but elegant, a thin silver chain with what appeared to be a small pendant or charm. Whatever words passed between them in that moment were too quiet for even the microphones to capture, but the look they exchanged spoke volumes. It was a private moment made public, a glimpse into the genuine connection between two artists who had navigated the often treacherous waters of fame and emerged not only successful, but somehow still authentic. Michael touched the bracelet with his fingertips, a gesture of reverence, before embracing Diana once more. The crowd's response was immediate and overwhelming. A standing ovation that continued for nearly 5 full minutes. The thunderous applause, punctuated by shouts of love and appreciation. In this moment, as the applause continues to wash over the stage like waves upon a shore, I ask you to reflect on what you just witnessed. What single word captures the emotion you felt seeing these two legends unite on stage? Was it connection, legacy, transformation, or perhaps something entirely your own? Comment below with your one word that encapsulates this powerful moment between Michael and Diana. Your word joins thousands of others, creating a collective emotional memory of this historic night that we all share together, even across time. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more untold stories from the life of Michael Jackson. Your support allows us to continue bringing these precious moments to light, preserving the legacy of an artist who touched so many lives around the world. The rest of the concert continued with the explosive energy that had become the hallmark of the Victory Tour, but something had changed in the atmosphere of the Silverdome. There was a sense of having witnessed something rare and precious, a moment of genuine human connection amid the carefully choreographed spectacle. In the merchandise stands, fans were already asking if there would be commemorative items to mark the surprise appearance, something tangible to help them hold onto the memory of what they had just experienced. Security guards, normally stoic and focused solely on crowd control, could be seen discussing the performance among themselves during breaks, gesturing with unusual animation as they described their favorite moments. Even the technical crew, veterans of countless concerts who had seen it all, stood in the wings with expressions of wonder, knowing they had been part of something that would be talked about for years to come. Throughout the stadium, people who had arrived as strangers found themselves engaged in animated conversations, sharing their reactions, comparing their emotions, forming bonds that would in some cases last far beyond this single night. After the encores, after the final bows, after the last cascade of fireworks had faded from the ceiling of the dome, the crowd lingered, reluctant to break the spell by returning to the ordinary world outside. They stood in the aisles, they remained in their seats, they gathered in the concourses, all talking, many still crying, some simply silent in the aftermath of overwhelming emotion. Outside in the parking lot, car radios were tuned to the same local station, which was already playing back-to-back songs from both artists in tribute to what the DJ was calling a once-in-a-lifetime moment in music history. People danced between the rows of cars, sang along with strangers, exchanged contact information with those they had bonded with during the show. The night air was alive with the afterglow of shared experience, with the knowledge that they had been present for something that could never be repeated, something that would become part of the cultural tapestry of their generation. In the days that followed, newspapers across the country carried the story on their front pages. Music magazines rushed special editions into production. Television news programs played the few authorized clips that had been released, analyzing every gesture, every note, every moment of interaction between the two legends. But for those who had been there, no analysis was necessary. They had felt it in their bodies, in their hearts, the pure, unfiltered connection between two artists who had helped shape the sound and feeling of American music for decades. They had witnessed not just a performance, but a moment of human truth that transcended entertainment. Many would tell the story for the rest of their lives, where they were sitting, what they were wearing, who they were with, how they felt when Diana Ross appeared on that stage, how they cried when she and Michael sang together, how the silver bracelet caught the light as she fastened it around his wrist. Years later, after Michael's untimely passing, Diana Ross would be interviewed about that night in Detroit. With tears in her eyes, she would touch her own wrist absently, as though feeling a phantom bracelet there. Some moments in life are so perfect, she would say, her voice soft with memory, so completely aligned with who you are and what you value, that they become more than memories. They become part of you, woven into the fabric of your being. She would explain that the bracelet she gave him that night had been a gift to her from Berry Gordy in the early days of Motown, a reminder to stay true to herself no matter how bright the spotlight became. I wanted Michael to have it because he understood the weight of that spotlight better than anyone, and yet he never let it dim his light. That night in Detroit, I needed him to know that he wasn't alone in carrying that weight. The interviewer would ask if she knew how meaningful that moment had been to the fans who witnessed it. Diana's smile would be gentle, knowing. Of course, we felt it too. 95,000 hearts beating together create a power you can't describe, only experience. Michael and I were just the conduit for something much larger than ourselves that night, something that belonged to all of us. In a quiet corner of the Motown Museum in Detroit, visitors today can find a small, unassuming display case. Inside, nestled on a bed of blue velvet, lies a silver bracelet, delicate, elegant in its simplicity. Beside it, a photograph shows the moment it passed from one legend to another on a July night in 1984. The accompanying text is brief, allowing the artifact to speak largely for itself, but it ends with a quote from one of the thousands of letters the museum received when the display was first announced. I was there that night. I was 19 years old, and I had saved for months to buy my ticket. When Diana Ross walked onto that stage, when she and Michael sang together, when she gave him that bracelet, in that moment, I understood what it means to be truly moved by art. I understood that music isn't just something you hear. It's something you feel in the deepest part of your soul. I have carried that understanding with me every day since. The letter is signed simply, a grateful witness. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more untold stories from the life of Michael Jackson. Every subscription helps us continue our mission to preserve and share these precious moments with fans around the world. And please share your thoughts in the comments below. What other moments from Michael's extraordinary life would you like us to explore in future videos?